Before the iPhone, before streaming, before every song you've ever heard lived inside a glowing sheet of glass, there was a device that rewired an entire generation. A device so simple it felt futuristic. A device that resurrected a dying Apple and reshaped modern culture. The Apple iPod. It was sleek, iconic, and everywhere. But behind those white earbuds was a complicated story, one filled with lawsuits, scandals, global political battles, factory turmoil, and even a quiet civil war within Apple itself. This is the rise and fall of the device that saved Apple, and the strange journey that led to its disappearance. This is Signal Lost. In the late 1990s, Apple wasn't Apple. It wasn't the trillion-dollar giant we know today. It wasn't even stable. Apple was bleeding money, fast. In 1996, the company reported an $816 million loss. In 1997, another $1 billion disappeared. Its market share slipped under 4%. The product lineup was a mess. Then came the return of Steve Jobs, who slashed nearly 70% of Apple's products and introduced the digital hub vision, positioning music as Apple's path forward.
The field that we decided to do it in, the choice we made was music. Now, why music? Well, we love music, and it's always good to do something you love.
MP3 players were slow, low capacity, and frustrating. Napster was collapsing under lawsuits. The industry was desperate for stability. Jobs saw a chance for Apple to create not just a device, but a complete ecosystem that made digital music simple. Tony Fadell pitched a next-generation music player. Apple nearly rejected him. Instead, Jobs hired him and formed a covert pirate team to build the device in 8 months. Internal groups clashed over control, but a tiny 1.8-inch Toshiba hard drive, capable of holding 1,000 songs, unlocked the idea. The revolution began. On October 23, 2001, Apple unveiled the iPod. 5 gigabytes of storage, 1,000 songs, $399 price tag. Firewire transfers 30 times faster than USB competitors. A click wheel that made navigating music effortless. Critics mocked it.
Boom. That's iPod. I happen to have one right here in my pocket, matter of fact. There it is, right there. So, this amazing little device holds 1,000 songs, and it goes right in my pocket.
But users quickly realized it wasn't just an MP3 player, it was a lifestyle device. Hidden inside, however, was a sealed battery, a design choice that would soon haunt Apple. After roughly 18 months, many iPod batteries began failing. But Apple had sealed the battery inside. When customers complained, Apple's earliest response was simple: buy a new iPod. Battery replacements could cost up to $250. Then a viral documentary, iPod's Dirty Secret, exposed the issue. Public backlash grew. Lawsuits followed. Apple responded with new battery replacement programs, $50 store credits, extended warranties. The scandal didn't stop the iPod's momentum, but it cracked Apple's image of perfection. The iPod exploded into a global phenomenon. 2002, 400,000 units. 2003, 937,000. 2004, 4.4 million. 2005, 22.5 million. 2006, 39.4 million. By 2005, the iPod generated over 40% of Apple's revenue. iTunes crossed $1 billion in sales. The Mini, Nano, Shuffle, and Video cemented Apple's dominance. But challenges grew. The $100 million lawsuit. Creative Technology sued Apple, claiming the iPod interface copied their Zen design. Apple settled for $100 million. B. The DRM War. Apple versus Europe. Every song bought on iTunes came wrapped in Apple's DRM, meaning it would only play on an iPod or inside iTunes. European governments argued this trapped consumers. Norway, France, and other countries demanded Apple open iTunes so purchased music would work on any device, or face bands. Apple refused, citing contracts with record labels. The standoff lasted years. It ended in 2009 when Apple convinced music labels to abandon DRM entirely. The iPod wasn't just shaping music, it was shaping global digital policy. If you're enjoying this Signal Lost deep dive, hit like and subscribe. Now, let's decode the fall of the Apple iPod. Jobs realized phones would replace music players, so Apple secretly launched Project Purple, the iPhone. Inside Apple, tensions grew. The iPhone team received top engineers, resources, and priority. The iPod team felt sidelined, watching their own product line become obsolete from within. Multi-touch sealed the iPod's fate. The fall had begun before the public even realized it. The iPhone launched in 2007 and reshaped the industry. 2007, 1.4 million units. 2008, 11.6 million. 2009, 20+ million. Meanwhile, iPod sales declined. 54.8 million, 45 million, 35 million. The iPod Touch cannibalized older models. Nano reinvented itself repeatedly. Shuffle became more accessory than device. Smartphones replaced the standalone music player, even inside Apple. As Apple sold tens of millions of iPods, production centered around Foxconn, a massive electronics manufacturer in Shenzhen, China. Workers lived in dormitories and worked long, demanding shifts to keep up with global demand. For years, most consumers never questioned how their devices were made. That changed when media reports highlighted harsh working conditions, strict oversight, long hours, and pressure during peak production cycles. Between 2009 and 2010, a series of worker suicides occurred at the facility. The incidents drew global attention. Labor groups demanded investigations. Protesters gathered outside Apple stores. Apple's closely guarded supply chain became a public debate. Apple responded with audits, supplier guidelines, and new labor standards. Foxconn raised wages and implemented safety reforms. The events didn't end the iPod, but they changed how the world viewed Apple and cast a shadow over the final years of the iPod era. By 2010, the iPod was no longer central to Apple's future. The iPod Classic survived until 2014, then was discontinued quietly. Remaining units shot from $249 to over $1,000 in resale markets. The Nano and Shuffle faded. The Touch lingered as a budget device, but the iPod brand had lost its identity. In 2019, Apple released the 7th generation iPod Touch, priced at $199 to $399. It wasn't a comeback. It was a low-cost entry into Apple's ecosystem. On May 10, 2022, Apple officially ended the iPod line with a short press release. The music lives on. Within hours, the final units sold out. Sealed devices quickly reached $800 to $1,000 plus online. After 21 years, the iPod era officially ended. Apple had evolved. The company's focus shifted to iPhone, Apple Watch, iPad, AirPods, and services. The iPod Touch remained as a budget option but had no strategic future. Ending the iPod wasn't surprising. The world had moved on to streaming and smartphones. The iPod wasn't killed. It simply became unnecessary. The iPod rebuilt Apple from the ground up. It taught Apple how to scale hardware production. It shaped the company's design philosophy. It made the ecosystem model possible. And it financed Apple's future icons, the iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and AirPods. The iPod didn't fail. It evolved into everything Apple built next. It was the bridge between the Apple that nearly died and the Apple that dominates the world today. This was the rise and fall of the Apple iPod. This is Signal Lost.